$20 million lawsuit against a former city police officer. That officer shot and killed her husband 5 years ago after a police chase. He now works in another part of the state where CBS 6 has learned he's facing new allegations. Katie Beck investigates in this special report. Katie?
Well, Bill, we only learned about the recent incident while investigating the wrongful death suit filed in Richmond against Sergeant Everett Woolums. So we followed the new lead to Tappahannock, where we met a family who says they too have been wronged by Woolums. Just 10 police officers are sworn to serve and protect the small town of Tappahannock. Even out of uniform, neighbors recognize them, count on them to keep the peace. But some neighbors say there's an officer who's disturbing the peace.
I think it's terrible, and I think something needs to be done.
On April 30th, Tappahannock Police Sergeant Everett Woolums stopped two young men who were riding their bikes. 19-year-old Brian Churchill and his 21-year-old brother Brandon, riding home to this trailer park, were stopped for not having proper lights on their bike.
And they was like, we are on our way home. And he said, well, get off the DAM bikes.
That's what Teresa Churchill's sons told her happened. Tappahannock Police Chief Jim Barrett told CBS 6 News the boys ran from Woolums and that the pursuit briefly became physical. Barrett says it also became clear to Sergeant Woolums that the boys had mental disabilities.
And had him, by his arm, and kept wrenching his arm and broke his arm in 2 places.
The boys got away, made it home, and their mom called for an ambulance. The chief says Sergeant Woolums learned of that call and without a warrant went into the boys' home and arrested both of them for obstructing justice.
Get them off the streets, off the police force.
Churchill has filed a complaint against Woolums for excessive force against her sons. She says neither boy had ever been in trouble before. The complaint is because of her son's injuries, who's now scheduled for surgery later this month.
1827 Richmond.
But this isn't Woolums' first complaint as a police officer. In fact, his most serious complaint happened when he was working right here in Richmond.
He intentionally shot him, and he knew that he was unarmed.
A $20 million wrongful death suit was refiled last year against Woolums. It stems from an incident in 2006. Woolums made a traffic stop in Northside Richmond at 3 a.m. The driver, Billy Thigpen, fled, hitting parked cars before getting out and running. After a foot pursuit, Woolums says things got physical. In a recent deposition, he says Thigpen repeatedly grabbed for his gun during a tussle between the two men. He says finally they separated about 5 feet apart. He says, quote, Mr. Thigpen lunged one more time and I shot him.
Everett Woolums did not have a reasonable basis to believe that his life was in danger.
Richmond Commonwealth Attorney Mike Herring disagreed, saying for him the shoot raised no red flags and that Thigpen's DNA was found on Woolums' gun. But Thigpen's attorney and his wife say the gun never should have been drawn on an unarmed man in the first place.
I heard the gunshot. Billy, my husband, was standing right here.
Christy Thigpen saw her husband shooting. It happened just feet in front of their house where they were raising 6 children. Since then, she says she's had nightmares about the event.
2 years, night after night, I saw that gun, that fire come from that gun and my husband fall on his face. I wish that I could have saved his life.
A CBS 6 investigation has turned up 2 more complaints against Sergeant Woolums, one that was made 3 months before the 2006 shooting, alleging that a 17-year-old girl was hurt by Woolums during a disorderly conduct arrest in Richmond. She spoke with CBS 6 back in 2006 and provided us with these photographs. That complaint was never prosecuted. In 2008 in Tappahannock, another citizen filed a civil rights complaint against Woolums after she was handcuffed by him as he responded to a minor accident in a Walmart parking lot. A federal judge dismissed the case. We went to Tappahannock to ask Sergeant Woolums about these complaints. Getting him to answer our questions wasn't easy. When we first located Sergeant Woolums, he only had this to say before driving away quickly.
Hey, I can't talk about either one of these cases y'all are following about.
Are you Officer Woolums? No. Numerous follow-up attempts to speak to Sergeant Woolums and his attorney were unsuccessful. But Christy Thigpen's attorney, David Morgan, is talking. He believes her $20 million lawsuit will either be settled by the city of Richmond or go to a jury trial before the end of this year. Neither the Richmond Police Department nor the Commonwealth's attorney would comment on the case. Morgan says the outcome will send a message to police in every jurisdiction.
Just because you're a police officer doesn't mean that you have the right to determine who lives and who dies.
Now, it's important to note that in the cases we cited, Sergeant Woolums has never been criminally charged or convicted. The Tappahannock police chief says Woolums is under internal investigation for the excessive force complaint, but not currently on administrative leave, and he says he has no plans to sanction him further at this time.